He was perhaps he was my dearest friend and my best friend, not as man and woman, but as two human beings.
The 6 actors who refused to attend John Wayne's funeral. Now that's a story that sent shockwaves through Hollywood and left fans asking questions for decades. But before the controversy, there was a journey, one that began far from the bright lights of fame. Born Marion Robert Morrison on May 26, 1907 in Winterset, Wayne came from humble beginnings. Life soon carried him west to Southern California, where his future would slowly begin to take shape. As a young man, Wayne wasn't thinking about movies. He had his sights set on sports. He was intelligent, determined, and physically gifted, eventually earning a football scholarship to the University of Southern California. At the time, that was no small achievement. It looked like the start of a promising athletic career. But everything changed in an instant. A serious injury shattered his football dreams, forcing him to abandon the path he once believed was his destiny. Suddenly, he was left searching for direction, starting over when it mattered most. That unexpected setback led him somewhere he never imagined, into the heart of Hollywood. Wayne began working at Fox Film Corporation, taking on any job he could find. He carried props, moved equipment, and observed everything around him, quietly learning the craft from the ground up. It wasn't glamorous work, but it became his training ground. And it didn't take long before someone important noticed him, John Ford. Ford, already a respected director, saw something in the young Wayne that others had overlooked. There was a raw, unmistakable presence about him, a kind of quiet strength that couldn't be taught.
I knew all of his secrets and he knew all of mine. And to this day, his kids say to me, "Come on, Auntie Maureen, you know more about Dad than anybody else. Tell."
Taking him under his wing, Ford became a mentor who would help shape not just Wayne's career, but his identity as an actor. Still, success didn't come overnight. Throughout the 1930s, Wayne worked tirelessly, appearing in a string of low-budget westerns. These films didn't bring fame or fortune, but they gave him something far more valuable: experience. Each role allowed him to refine his on-screen persona, slowly building the rugged, dependable cowboy image that would later define him. Those years were a grind, testing his patience and resilience, but they laid the foundation for everything that followed. Then came 1939, the turning point.
Well, I think I've established in this country that I have a love for it, and the fact that I am well known, I suppose.
Under Ford's direction, Wayne starred in Stagecoach as the Ringo Kid. It was the role that changed everything. Practically overnight, he transformed from a struggling actor into a rising star. Audiences were captivated by his presence. A powerful mix of toughness, quiet confidence, and understated charm. He wasn't just another actor in a Western. He became the Western hero. From that moment on, Wayne's career soared. Over the next several decades, he became one of Hollywood's most reliable and iconic leading men, appearing in more than 170 films. His collaborations with Ford produced unforgettable classics, including The Searchers and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. These films revealed a deeper side of Wayne, not just the fearless gunslinger, but a complex man wrestling with inner conflict and moral ambiguity.
But there's so many stories about Duke. Funny stories, crazy stories, all kinds of things. Oh.
In The Searchers, especially, his performance carried a darker emotional weight, redefining what a Western hero could be. Wayne's influence didn't stop with Westerns. He also became a defining figure in war films, starring in movies like Sands of Iwo Jima. His portrayal of strong, principled leaders resonated deeply with audiences, earning him critical recognition and even an Academy Award nomination. It proved that beneath his tough exterior was a performer capable of genuine emotional depth. Yet what made Wayne truly remarkable was his range. He could be commanding and intense, but also warm, humorous, and even vulnerable. In films like McClintock and The Shootist, he showed audiences different shades of his personality. The Shootist, in particular, carried a powerful emotional weight. Playing an aging gunslinger facing his final days, Wayne delivered a performance that felt deeply personal. Having battled cancer in real life, he brought an authenticity that made the film feel like a farewell, not just to his career, but to an entire era of Hollywood history. And of course, no story about John Wayne would be complete without his unforgettable Oscar win in 1970 for True Grit.
Stayed completely out of it and said, "We are Americans." Anybody that wanted to join us, it was fine.
Playing the rough-edged U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn, Wayne delivered a performance that perfectly captured everything audiences had come to love about him. Beneath the gravelly voice and hardened exterior was a character full of humor, heart, and quiet compassion. It wasn't just another role. It felt like a culmination of everything he had built over decades. Rooster Cogburn wasn't polished or perfect, but that's exactly what made him so real. And when Wayne finally stood on that stage to accept his Academy Award, it felt less like a win for one performance and more like a tribute to an entire career defined by persistence and authenticity. That long overdue Oscar symbolized something deeper. Wayne had never chased trends or tried to reshape himself to fit Hollywood's shifting expectations. Instead, he stayed true to who he was, consistent, grounded, and unwavering. While the industry evolved around him, he remained a steady presence, and that reliability became his greatest strength.
People like to see that you're a regular guy and you drink. Even when I used to play in the tournaments with all the...
Audiences trusted him. They believed in him. And in a business built on illusion, that kind of connection is rare. His legacy wasn't just about the roles he played, but about the values he seemed to carry with him both on and off screen. But behind the iconic image, Wayne's personal life told a very different story, one filled with passion, heartbreak, and complicated relationships. His off-screen journey was just as dramatic as any Western he starred in, marked by intense romances and deeply personal struggles. His first marriage began in 1933 with Josephine Alicia Sayens, at a time when he was still fighting to establish himself in Hollywood. Those early years were far from easy. Long hours, financial uncertainty, and the pressures of an unpredictable career created constant strain. While there was genuine love between them, the demands of his rising fame slowly began to pull them apart. Together, they had 4 children, Michael, Mary Antonia, Patrick, and Melinda, building a family even as the foundation beneath it started to crack. After 12 years, the marriage came to an end. Still, his children remained a lasting part of his legacy, with Michael and Patrick eventually following in his footsteps into the film industry. Not long after, in 1946, Wayne married Esperanza Bauer, known as Chata. Their relationship burned bright from the start, intense, passionate, and impossible to ignore. But that same intensity quickly turned volatile. Their marriage became known for its explosive arguments and emotional turbulence. Jealousy and conflict overshadowed whatever love had first brought them together. It was a relationship defined by extremes, and by 1954, it finally collapsed under its own weight.
Space of time. I mean, are you proud of what happened in Hollywood at that time?
I think it was probably a very necessary thing at the time.
For Wayne, it was a painful lesson in how quickly passion can spiral into chaos. That same year, he found love again with Pilar Palete. Pilar brought a different kind of energy into his life, one that offered moments of calm and stability. Together, they built a family, welcoming 3 children, Isa, John Ethan, and Marissa. For a time, it seemed like Wayne had finally found balance between his demanding career and his personal life. Their marriage lasted nearly 2 decades, longer than his previous relationships. and was filled with both joy and challenges. Yet even this relationship wasn't immune to the pressures that had shaped his life for so long. Wayne's relentless work ethic and larger-than-life personality often created emotional distance. Over time, the connection between them shifted, and they eventually separated, though they never officially divorced. Despite the separation, there remained a bond between them that never fully disappeared, a quiet reminder that not all relationships fit into simple definitions. In his later years, as age and illness began to take their toll, Wayne found comfort in an unexpected place. Pat Stacy, his former secretary, became a steady presence in his life. What began as a professional relationship grew into something much deeper, a companionship built on trust, care, and mutual understanding. She stood by him during some of his most difficult moments, offering support as his health declined. Their relationship may have raised eyebrows at the time, but for Wayne, it provided something rare: peace. Away from the chaos of Hollywood and the expectations that had followed him for decades, he found a connection that was simple and genuine. In the end, it wasn't about appearances or public opinion. It was about having someone there when it mattered most. A quiet kind of loyalty that stayed with him through the final chapter of his life. When John Wayne passed away on June 11, 1979, at the age of 72, the impact was immediate and undeniable. It wasn't just Hollywood that felt the loss. It was the entire country. Wayne had become more than a film star over the decades. He was a symbol. To millions, he represented strength, independence, and a version of America rooted in grit and tradition. Known simply as the Duke, his presence had defined an era. So when news of his passing spread, it felt like the closing of a chapter in American cultural history. His funeral, held at Our Lady of the Angels Church, brought together family members, close friends, and some of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood. It was a powerful gathering, a final tribute to a man whose influence stretched far beyond the screen. The atmosphere was heavy with respect, admiration, and reflection. Yet for all the people who came to honor him, it was the absence of a few notable figures that sparked the most conversation. Because in Hollywood, who doesn't show up can sometimes say more than who does. The individuals who chose not to attend weren't skipping the funeral for trivial reasons. Their decisions were rooted in deeper conflicts, ideological differences, personal clashes, and moral boundaries they felt they couldn't ignore. Wayne had always been outspoken about his beliefs, and while that earned him loyalty from many, it also created lasting divisions. One of the most controversial aspects of his legacy came from a 1971 interview in which Wayne made statements about race and society that drew heavy criticism. His words, particularly regarding white supremacy and social responsibility, ignited outrage that followed him for the rest of his life. He also openly expressed strong nationalist views, often emphasizing his belief in putting America first. For some, this reinforced his image as a patriotic icon. For others, it painted him as a deeply polarizing figure whose views were difficult to reconcile with changing social values. So when the time came to say goodbye, not everyone felt they could stand in tribute. Among the most notable absences was Jane Fonda. Her conflict with Wayne had been building for years, particularly during the Vietnam War era. Fonda became one of the most visible voices in the anti-war movement, while Wayne remained a staunch supporter of U.S. military involvement. Their beliefs were not just different, they were fundamentally opposed. Wayne had once dismissed anti-war protests with harsh words, calling them unpatriotic. Fonda, in turn, saw figures like Wayne as symbols of the very system she was challenging. Their tension reportedly came to a head during a personal encounter, leaving little room for reconciliation. For Fonda, attending his funeral would have felt contradictory to everything she stood for. Then there was Marlon Brando, another towering figure who chose not to attend. Brando's views on social justice, particularly regarding Native American rights, placed him on the opposite end of the spectrum from Wayne. He had long criticized Hollywood's portrayal of the Old West, arguing that many Western films glorified a history built on displacement and injustice. Wayne, whose career was deeply tied to that very mythology, became an indirect symbol of what Brando opposed. His absence wasn't fueled by personal animosity as much as it was by principle, a refusal to honor a legacy he fundamentally disagreed with. Paul Newman also chose to stay away, though in a far quieter manner. Known for his humanitarian efforts and progressive values, Newman represented a different kind of Hollywood figure, one focused on activism and social change. While there was no explosive feud between him and Wayne, their philosophies rarely aligned. Wayne had openly expressed skepticism toward politically active actors, once suggesting that many in the industry overestimated their intellectual authority. It was a subtle but clear dismissal of figures like Newman. In response, Newman maintained his distance, both publicly and privately. His absence at the funeral reflected that quiet divide, not dramatic but deeply rooted. Another powerful name absent from John Wayne's funeral was Burt Lancaster. Known for his intelligence, bold voice, and unwavering political stance, Lancaster had long positioned himself as someone unafraid to challenge authority. During the era of McCarthyism, when many in Hollywood chose silence out of fear, Lancaster spoke out, a move that defined his character both on and off screen. To him, actors carried a responsibility that went beyond entertainment. They had influence, and with that came the duty to question power, not simply uphold it. Wayne, on the other hand, stood firmly on the opposite side of that philosophy. He believed in defending American institutions and values without hesitation, often rejecting the idea that actors should use their platform for political activism. While the two men respected each other's talent, their worldviews never aligned. That quiet but undeniable divide remained throughout their lives. So when Lancaster chose not to attend the funeral, it wasn't loud or dramatic. It didn't need to be. His absence spoke clearly enough, a silent but firm reflection of principles he had lived by for decades. Then there was James Garner, a man whose decision carried a different kind of weight. Garner wasn't speaking from theory or ideology alone. He had lived through war himself. As a veteran, he had seen firsthand the realities that Hollywood often dramatized. That experience shaped how he viewed films, especially war stories that leaned heavily into heroism without acknowledging the deeper cost. While he respected Wayne as an actor, he struggled with what he saw as an overly simplified, sometimes glorified portrayal of conflict. Garner once described Wayne as a good actor, but not someone I agreed with, a statement that revealed both respect and distance. His decision not to attend wasn't fueled by bitterness. It was rooted in personal truth. For Garner, staying away was simply an extension of who he was, independent, thoughtful, and unwilling to compromise his beliefs for appearances. Perhaps one of the most meaningful absences came from Harry Belafonte. A towering figure in both entertainment and the civil rights movement, Belafonte's life was defined by his commitment to justice and equality. As a close ally of Martin Luther King, Jr., he had dedicated years to fighting systemic inequality. For someone with that level of conviction, Wayne's past statements on race were impossible to overlook. Remarks Wayne had made about Native Americans and broader social issues left a lasting impression, one that clashed deeply with everything Belafonte stood for. For Belafonte, this wasn't about dismissing Wayne's talent or cultural impact. It was about drawing a line. Respecting someone's work didn't mean accepting their views, and attending the funeral would have blurred that distinction. His absence, like the others, was quiet, but it carried a weight that didn't need explanation. In the end, John Wayne understood exactly how he was seen. Late in life, he once said, "I don't think you should apologize for being who you are." That statement captured the essence of the man, proud, unyielding, and deeply rooted in his beliefs. It was a philosophy that earned him fierce loyalty from fans who admired his consistency, but it also created distance, even isolation, from those who saw the world differently. That same unwavering stance was both his greatest strength and his greatest divide. The actors who chose not to attend his funeral weren't simply skipping a ceremony. They were making a final statement, not out of disrespect, but out of conviction. Their absence wasn't about gossip, rivalry, or personal grudges. It reflected something deeper, a line they could not cross, even in death. In many ways, those empty seats told a story just as powerful as the lives being remembered inside the church. They symbolized the complicated legacy Wayne left behind, one that inspired admiration and criticism in equal measure. On June 11, 1979, Wayne's journey came to an end at UCLA Medical Center, where he passed away from stomach cancer, surrounded by those closest to him. It was a quiet, deeply human moment, far removed from the larger-than-life roles that had defined his career. For fans around the world, it marked the loss of a figure who had seemed almost immortal on screen. The silence that followed felt heavy, as if something irreplaceable had slipped away. Soon after, he was laid to rest at Pacific View Memorial Park, overlooking the serene coastline of Newport Beach. It was a fitting resting place, calm, expansive, and dignified. The ocean breeze carried a quiet stillness as family, friends, and admirers gathered to say goodbye. There were no grand performances or dramatic farewells, just shared memories, reflection, and a deep sense that an era had truly come to a close. Even after his passing, John Wayne's legacy refused to fade into the background. If anything, it only grew stronger with time. His films continued to play on television, introducing new generations to the larger-than-life cowboy who once dominated the silver screen. His image, the wide stance, the steady gaze, the unmistakable voice, became more than just a memory. It became myth. But alongside the admiration, something else lingered: the debate. Because John Wayne wasn't just remembered, he was constantly re-examined. That debate reignited in a major way in February 2019, when his controversial 1971 interview with Playboy resurfaced online. Decades after it was first published, his words suddenly reached a new audience, one far removed from the era in which they were spoken. The reaction was immediate and intense. Critics argued that some of his statements, particularly on race and social issues, had no place being associated with modern public institutions. One of the biggest targets became John Wayne Airport, named in his honor. Calls to rename it began circulating once again, fueled by a cultural shift that demanded accountability from historical figures. In response, his son, Ethan Wayne, stepped forward to defend his father. He argued that judging someone based on a single interview, especially one taken out of its original context, painted an incomplete and unfair picture. For many supporters, this wasn't just about protecting Wayne's name. It was about preserving the legacy of a man they believed represented strength, honesty, and a different era of American identity. But the debate didn't fade. It only intensified. By 2020, during the nationwide protests following the death of George Floyd, the conversation returned with even greater force. Across the country, people began re-examining monuments, names, and symbols tied to controversial histories. Once again, the name of John Wayne Airport became a focal point. Petitions circulated, voices grew louder, and the divide between critics and defenders became even more visible. And yet, as of 2026, the name still stands. John Wayne Airport remains unchanged. It exists as both a tribute and a reminder, a tribute to a man whose influence on film is undeniable, and a reminder of the complexities that come with legacy. Because John Wayne's story isn't simple. It never was. Even decades after his death, his name continues to echo across Hollywood and beyond. His films remain iconic. His face still appears on posters and memorabilia, and his presence can still be felt in the performances of actors who came after him. But the question remains, who was the real Duke? Was he the fearless symbol of American strength that audiences admired, or a flawed figure whose views are now being re-examined under a different lens? That question resurfaces again and again, especially as younger generations encounter his work for the first time. Watching his films and reading his interviews through a modern perspective, some find themselves conflicted. They admire the artistry, the presence, the undeniable charisma, but struggle with the man behind it. Others, however, stand firmly in his defense, arguing that Wayne was a product of his time, someone who never pretended to be anything other than himself. To them, his honesty, even when controversial, is part of what made him so enduring. Film historians often describe Wayne as a paradox, a representation of American masculinity that was both powerful and deeply human. His characters were tough, often unshakable on the surface, yet carried emotional weight beneath it all. That balance is what made his performances resonate so strongly, and his influence didn't end with his generation. Actors like Clint Eastwood, Kevin Costner, and Sam Elliott have all, in different ways, carried forward elements of the path he helped define. At the same time, Hollywood's modern era has become more willing to explore the full truth behind its icons. Documentaries, essays, and discussions have begun to peel back the layers of Wayne's legacy, presenting both the legend and the man behind it. His story is no longer just about admiration. It's about understanding. It has become part of a larger conversation about how society remembers its heroes, how art intersects with personal belief, and how legacies evolve as the world changes around them. Still, there's no denying this. John Wayne left a mark far too deep to ever be erased. Whether you admire him, question him, or sit somewhere in between, ignoring him simply isn't an option. His story became part of a much larger narrative, one tied to America itself. A story built on ambition, pride, contradiction, and relentless determination. The Duke arrived in Hollywood with nothing but drive, and over time he built something extraordinary. A legacy filled with iconic films, global fame, and a level of controversy that still sparks debate decades later. Even now, long after his passing, Wayne's presence continues to loom over Hollywood like a shadow that refuses to fade. His image remains frozen in time, captured on classic movie posters, painted across murals, and echoed in every dusty Western landscape that helped define an entire era of cinema. But beneath that larger-than-life image lies a question that still hasn't found a final answer. Who was the real Duke? Was he the fearless hero audiences believed in, a symbol of strength, resilience, and old-school values? Or was he a far more complicated man, one whose beliefs and words continue to challenge how history remembers him? That tension is exactly what keeps his story alive. It's not just about what he represented on screen. It's about how those ideals hold up in a world that has changed dramatically since his time. Every few years, his name rises back into public conversation, often sparking new waves of discussion, especially online. Younger generations, shaped by different values and perspectives, revisit his interviews and films with fresh eyes. Some find inspiration in his performances, while others struggle with the views he expressed off-screen. Questions are raised about legacy, accountability, and what it means to honor figures from the past. Why do some names endure while others are reconsidered? And where does John Wayne fit into that evolving conversation? At the same time, his supporters remain just as passionate. They argue that Wayne never tried to present himself as perfect. He was direct, unapologetic, and rooted in the beliefs of his time. To them, that authenticity, even when flawed, is what made him unforgettable. It's what gave his on-screen presence a sense of truth that audiences could feel, even if they didn't always agree with the man behind it. Film historians often describe him as a paradox of American masculinity, and it's easy to see why. Wayne's characters were strong, commanding, and seemingly unbreakable, yet they often carried emotional depth beneath the surface. That contrast made his performances resonate across generations, and his influence continues to live on through actors like Clint Eastwood, Kevin Costner, and Sam Elliott, all of whom in different ways reflect pieces of the path he helped create. Every modern Western hero, every lone figure riding across the screen still carries a trace of the Duke's legacy. Today's Hollywood, however, isn't afraid to look deeper. Documentaries, podcasts, and critical essays continue to explore both sides of John Wayne, the cinematic legend and the man behind the image. His story has become part of a broader cultural conversation, one that asks difficult questions about how we remember our heroes, how society evolves, and how truth and myth often collide. And maybe that's why his legacy endures, because it isn't simple, it isn't one-sided, it's layered, complicated, and constantly being re-examined. No matter where you stand, one thing remains undeniable. John Wayne's impact is still being felt. He built something that has outlived him, something that continues to stir emotion, admiration, and debate nearly half a century later. Love him or question him, his presence in film history is impossible to ignore. And that's the remarkable thing about the Duke. His story never truly ended. It continues to ride on, carried through every old film, every discussion, and every new generation discovering his work for the first time. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, drop a comment sharing your thoughts on John Wayne's legacy, and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's most fascinating stories. See you in the next video.